Hi there, beautiful soul. So in the past weeks, I think let's say 5 6 weeks, I've been having 4 or 5 coaching sessions based on the question: should I go to study or not? So basically, all the people that find me have a chronic fatigue syndrome in some sort of a degree. And they have this stressor in their lives, whether they should go to study or not. Well, why would you go to study when you're ill? Let's talk about that, because the people who ask this question, they obviously don't say it because they want me to go to study. So they obviously need some consolidation that not going to study while being ill is okay. And I'm keen to give that to them. I mean, yes, I'm already out, I don't believe in it. And a lot of things that I would have to say about this topic are not considered normal. And therefore, in nowadays cancel culture, I'm cancelled. I'm out. Sometimes people even say this kind of sentences like, yeah, but you don't join in anything. You've got nothing to say anymore. You're out. Well, not a hair on my single body wants to be in, for that matter. So let's talk about it from another perspective, because I don't want to force you doing, either go to study or not. I don't think that is my job. But going back to sort of a run around right now. In 2013, I actually studied myself. Some sort of some people in my environment sort of pushed me to do something that I wanted to. They pushed me to go to study. So I got this feeling that if I wouldn't have this study, I'm useless for society, I'm not worthy. So I went and I disliked it. I hated it, more or less. And because I had such a terrible school time myself, I decided to become, to study primary school teacher. And every day I walked in a classroom, because it was sort of a part-time teacher, part-time study. Some inner voice in me said, like, Daniel, you're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to treat children this way. And my favorite topic was child psychology, and basically everything that was being told about how children learn was being ignored by reality. So on one side we had this topic about, children are autonomic, they need safety, they need relationships, equal relationships, they don't like this pyramid structure, they want to explore themselves. That's how natural learning works. And on the other side, the reality, there was nothing of that. So it was just for me doing interesting stuff, talking about it, but not really implementing things. And then later that year, I think it was October of 2013, I decided to go to do a meditation. I don't know why. Something in me said, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a try. And it actually was my first meditation ever. So I had to look up how it works, and I found this video from Spirit Science. It was sort of counting down with my breath, I think, that I did that. And I think I was doing it for like 1 minute, and I was out. I was gone. There was no Daniel anymore. There was no time anymore. There was no space anymore. So there was this infinite spot, let's say a non-dualistic spot, where words were not possible, distance were not possible, and there was no differentiation between me and others. And, it could have easily been 2,000 years or 1 second. I don't know. But at the end, I felt like I was losing myself, and I could not find myself anymore. So yeah, that was weird. And then so I was like a little bit worried. Where am I? And as these thoughts started to reoccur, I was somehow back in my body, and I had this urge to try to understand what just happened with me, this non-dualistic experience, this mystic experience, as you can call it as well. And basically, the words in my head came up like, there is no words that can describe this. Reality is not real. Life is an illusion. I am not really here. So I tried to Google this stuff, and I Googled life is an illusion. And then I found a really nice, well, only one result, by the way. That was Alan Watts. And Alan Watts is, let's say, a psychologist, a philosopher. And he was very active in the 60s and the 70s, I think. And thank God, they recorded every one of his sessions, I think, more or less. I mean, there's so much sessions out there from him. And in one of the first videos or podcasts that I heard about him was Alan Watts describing to people what they should do with their life. Like young people in their 20s asking Alan Watts, what should I do with my life? And Alan Watts always responded to them with the same question back. What would you do if money was not involved or not a problem? And he always got back lots of stories, like dreams, more or less, adventures of what you could do with life. And then Alan Watts always said to them, well, do exactly that. And somehow it will become all right. Somehow you will make it. If you're passionate about something, you can become a master in your specific thing. Whatever it is, maybe there's only a handful of people that require such a thing. And then you should go do that. And it will somehow become all right. And then, of course, doing this is a leap of faith. Like on one hand, you got society telling you that you need this type of studies for you to get a job, because uneducated people will never get a job. Well, that's a belief. It's also a belief about yourself, that you're not valid yet, that you're unworthy. So it's a negative, limited belief about yourself. And in order to overcome that, you need to do something. So let's say you feel you're unworthy. And most of you probably don't feel that way. But after exploring, you probably notice that you actually do feel that way. And so let's say you feel unworthy. Then you don't want to deal with that. So you can do a coping mechanism. And a coping mechanism sort of resembles the fight, flight, or hide mechanism of the nervous system. So you can overcompensate this belief of unworthiness by going to try to prove to others that you're worthy by going to college, going to study. Now, the problem with this is that you are fighting a belief system by not addressing the belief system. So the belief system will enhance itself because you're doing something that actually proves to yourself that you're unworthy. You're unworthy, that's why you go to school, because you believe you're not going to make it otherwise. And that is the thing with all these coping mechanisms. And I think that maybe for people with chronic fatigue syndrome, like how I used to be, maybe 100% of my behavior used to be a coping mechanism. Well, thank God I stopped studying and I explored my hobby, which was back then comedy. And I made a show and I started to make some money. And within a year, I was getting rich just because of that leap of faith. I earned in a day more than a school teacher did in a month. So that was a very good decision. And decision, and I needed to hire some people for my job, like freelancers, because I didn't want to have fixed contracts. And then I started noticing the difference between people who studied and people who didn't study. And I don't want to call everybody who studied like stupid or something. Like, this is just my personal experience. If you study, you become sort of a mainstream robot. Like, everybody is the same. But in my comedy thing that I didn't want robots. So I wanted people who did not study. I only hired people who did not study, because all the others who studied, they were like so busy with all these administrative tasks, and they were just busy being busy, but not really doing stuff. And I didn't need that. So I got really good at, like making people hiring people in my shows or in, or to work with me as a photographer, people who didn't study at all. They just had a passion, and they explored that passion, and that was really working great for me. So going back, should you go to study or not? Like, for me, it doesn't have to. And I also think that there is a huge business built around these universities. And I might be wrong with this, but once upon a time I looked up like who owned the universities, the big universities from America. And I found out it was the same kind of group of people that also owned the pharmaceuticals and also owned the media. And in the media, I personally always get this feeling of, you're unworthy. You need to do something like a coping mechanism to deal and overcompensate your unworthiness, or whatever belief it is, like you're ugly or whatever, you're stupid. And you need to overcompensate these beliefs. And then it sort of becomes a business routine where, because you're not in your power, so you're working against yourself. That is the thing about a coping mechanism. It's based on the lower levels of consciousness, maybe shame, guilt, fear. So you subtract your energy, meaning you get weak. And Joe Dispenza said that in the stressful levels of consciousness, your body will become more matter and less energy. So it will only be a matter of time for you to get ill. And then we're going back at, is a study really secure or not? Because if this is the whole foundations that is based upon, if this is the foundations going to make you go to university, to get you in depth, to get you, this whole rat race, it's based on stress, then how safe does that make you feel if you know that stress will eventually, make you sick or kill you, or become a slave of your debt, or a slave of pharmaceuticals that you will need to take to deal with your health problems? And, I also found that how do I say this? If you're going to study, you learn a lot of dry stuff that doesn't really make sense for most studies. I mean, of course, there are studies. If you want to become a surgeon and do surgery on people, of course, you need to study. Whereas, I would like people not to need that surgery in the first place. But okay, there are studies that really make sense. If you want to become a pilot, you need to learn how this works. Yeah. Most studies are so basic, a little bit of everything, like economy, health, and sports, or communication manager. I believe in the Netherlands there are 1 million people who studied communication. Out of 17 million, 1 million. That is crazy. And none of my friends that studied, maybe a decade ago, 15 years ago, work in the field that they studied. None. Because these studies don't really mean anything for me. And maybe society is evolving faster than the degrees of people will So should you go to study? So it's the question right now. I mean, you're already sick. You're already ill. So you probably feel already unworthy or useless. Whatever word that you have for yourself. Then going to do something that is not really your path will make you feel more useless, more unworthy. Gets you in debt. You need to take a job to pay off that debt. It's a life of stress. And you get sick. Well, that is the negative side of it. Of course, there are really people out there who are really passionate about something and they just want to study a specific field because they're so passionate about it. But I mean, those people don't ask the question, should I go to study or not? Should I meet my parents' expectations or not? Should I just do what the rest of us is doing or not? They don't ask that. They just do it. I mean, if your whole passion is about being a pilot, of course you're going to study being a pilot. Or if you're working in a specific field and you want to know a little bit more about a specific thing to really, make your job or possibilities go next level, then of course you go to study. Maybe your employer will even pay it by then. So if your passion is just something like music, for example, and you think there is not a dime that I can earn in this business or gardening, but not really, doing all the hard work for gardens, then maybe you don't see society as the way it is. Or you only see a fraction of it. Like you're looking through life through a narrow thing. And life is only like this. But, there are so many places where you can go outside of the comfort zone, outside of society. I'm also not in. I'm out, remember? I'm cancelled. So there are communities where you can live and work on your passion, maybe do some other things beside of it, and you can travel. There are so many things that you can do. Once upon a time, I was working as an entertainer from between the years 2003 and 2007. And, I had to entertain the guests, build stages, build decoration, learn about languages and dancing and moderating stuff, playing games with them, creating events. And I thought always that it was not really a normal job. So I went to do this, how do you say this? Internship? No, it was not an internship. It was for young people to go to the ING Bank and to really get a normal job. So I was in 2008 selling insurances and mortgages. And I thought that was because I work at the bank that I was a real job. But the more I learned about what mortgages were and what those insurances were doing and how they were speculating on people's mortgages, and that the bank didn't really have that money, I found out that working at the bank was not really a real job. But working in the hotels were actually real jobs. So it also, shifts my perception about jobs in reality. I've listened to someone writing that the ones that are adding the most value to society are people who pick up the garbage. Because other jobs are what they call bullshit jobs. They just roll around the money, being occupied, showing that they work very hard, or just someone wearing a suit. I'm very critical about society. But I'm already out. I'm cancelled. And not a hair on my body is unhappy with that. Yeah. So for the ones who doubt whether they should try to become this image that they have about themselves, or that society has about them or how they should behave, For those ones, I'd recommend checking out Alan Watts on YouTube. In the beginning of listening to him, I did not have a single idea what he was talking about. But yeah, it's 8 years later right now. I completely love his look on reality, and I've always been some sort of philosopher myself. I'm not just a health coach or a holistic health expert or a comedian. I like this philosophy, and listening to his things, I decided to integrate him with the recovery program, because in order to heal, we also need to shift our perspectives of ourselves and on life. And I think he's great at doing that. So should you go to study? Is it a question of lack, of beating your unworthiness? Or is it a question from love, that this is what I want to do with my life? I'd like to study. Sometimes you see people in the gym, two guys, they look the exact same way, they might even be twins. But one is in the gym to overcompensate his belief that his body is not good enough. And the other one is in the gym because he loves hanging out there and building muscles. Two guys, they look the exact same way, but they are there with whole different reasons. One will eventually, let's say get ill, and one will just love it and continue his life doing that. Which one are you? From the point of view of lower levels of consciousness, life is matter. It's fixed. It's dull, mundane. You have to work hard, trying to change matter. And going to study seems like the best option. And from another point of view, life is energy, higher levels of consciousness, possibilities, faith, trust, and know that this path is way more secure than the other path. It's also way more of an adventure. The real problem, the real stressor here, is also who is in charge of the ship. Who is the captain of your ship? Is it somebody else's ideas? Or is it you? Is it your parents? Your peers? Or is it you? And if you don't really know that you are your own captain, because your ship, your journey, your life, your adventure. But if the boat is just drifting without a captain, then every day becomes sort of a survival. Survival energies represents lower levels of consciousness, represents stress, represents illness, represents death, represents a lack of creativity. So what is holding you in a direction? You can change directions, but obviously for a while you need to have a certain direction, otherwise you can't really go anywhere if you change your direction anywhere every time. So what is holding you? What is holding the direction for you? And I think that is anger. Anger to go your way. Anger is a boundary. You are in charge of the journey. You are the captain of the ship. And don't let anybody else think, or don't let anybody else make you think that you are not your own captain. That you need to listen to their strategies. And that is anger. It becomes a determination. And everybody who's tried to keep you off course, you feel sort of the anger, which allows you to keep your own direction. And maybe if they have studied, and they have invested 5, 6, or 7 years of their time doing something they did not want, they sort of become identified with this. They become identified with studying, and for them it's important, and they would probably like to hire people who also went through this 7 years of hell, what they didn't like. You can also look at it like that. So the only thing what is important for them was that they were able to battle themselves through, and that they did it. So maybe they're also jealous on people who actually pursued their dreams. So don't let anybody else decide that your journey should be different. From all I care, your journey is unique. And these universities are like factories where the uniqueness is being beaten out of you. But I'm cancelled, remember? Have a beautiful day today. Bye.